everybody, Mrs. Miller here again. I am going to read part 3 of Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. I hope you've been enjoying the first 2 parts. It's a very exciting book, and I can't wait to find out how you liked it. All right, let's begin. One evening, after the Gordons and Black Beauty and Ginger had returned to Birtwick Park, James and John were talking in the stable. "Who's going to take my place when I leave?" James asked. "Little Joe Green at the lodge," said John. "Why, he's just a child," James protested. "He's 14 and a half, said John. "He's small, but he's quick and willing and kind-hearted. He wants very much to come. His father would like it, and the master wants to give him his chance, just as he gave me my chance long ago, when my father and mother had died." So the next day Joe Green came to the stables to learn all he could before James left. He was a nice, bright little fellow, and always came whistling to work. A few nights after James had left, Black Beauty had eaten his hay and was lying down on his straw, fast asleep, when he was suddenly awakened by the loud ringing of the stable bell. He heard the door of John's house open, and then the sound of running feet. In a moment John was in the stable, putting on Black Beauty's saddle and bridle. Up to the door of Birtwick Hall they went together at a quick trot. The squire stood there with a lamp in his hand. "Now, John," he said, "you must ride for your mistress's life. Take this note to Dr. White. Then you can give your horse a rest at the inn, and be back as soon as you can." John said, "Yes, sir," and was off in a minute. Through the park and the village, and down the hill to the toll gate. John shouted and thumped on the door, and the man soon came out and threw open the gate. "Keep the gate open for the doctor," called John. Here's the money," and away he went. There was a long stretch of level road along the river. John said, "Now, Beauty, do your best," and Beauty did. He needed no whip, and for 2 miles he galloped as fast as if he were in a race. When they came to the bridge, John pulled him up a little and patted his neck. "Well done, old fellow," he said, and then they were off as fast as before. The air was frosty, the moon was bright, and it was very pleasant. They went through another village, through a dark wood, uphill and down, till after an 8 miles run they came up to the town. All was still except for the clatter of Black Beauty's feet on the stones. As they drew up at Dr. White's door, the clock in the church tower struck 3. Ding, ding, ding. John rang the bell and pounded on the door. An upstairs window opened, and out came Dr. White's head. "What do you want?" he called. Mrs. Gordon is very ill, sir. Master wants you to come right away. He thinks she'll die if you can't get there. Here's a note." "Wait," said the doctor. "I'll be right down." He closed the window and soon at the door. "The worst of it," he said. "My horse has been on the go all day and is worn out. My son has taken the other horse. May I use yours?" "He has come at a gallop nearly all the way, sir," said John, "and I was to give him a rest here, but I know my master wants you to get there in a hurry, so I guess he would not object." "All right," said the doctor. "I'll be ready in a minute." Black Beauty was very hot, and he was glad to stand there while John stroked his neck. Soon the doctor came out with his riding whip. "You won't need that, sir," said John. "Black Beauty will go till he drops. Take care of him, sir, if you can. I wouldn't want any harm to come to him." "No, John, of course not," said the doctor. The way back to Birtwick Hall was even harder. The doctor was a heavier man than John, and not so good a rider, but Black Beauty did his best. Little Joe Green was waiting at the lodge gate, and Squire Gordon was at the hall door, for he had heard them coming. The doctor went into the house with the squire, and Joe led Black Beauty to the stable. Poor Beauty! He was glad to get home, for his legs shook under him, and he could only stand and pant. There was not a dry hair on his body, and the water ran down his legs. He steamed all over. Joe still had much to learn. He rubbed the horse's legs and chest, but he did not cover him with a warm blanket. He thought Black Beauty would be too hot. Then Joe gave him a pail of cold water to drink, put hay and corn in front of him, thinking he had done the right things, went away. Soon Black Beauty began to shake and tremble. He felt freezing cold and he ached all over. Oh, how he wished for his warm, thick blanket and for John to come. But John had 8 miles to walk. Black Beauty lay down on his straw and tried to go to sleep. At last he heard John at the door. He gave a low moan, for he was in great pain. In a moment John was at his side, stooping down over the horse. Black Beauty could not tell him how he felt, but John seemed to know. Quickly he covered the poor horse with 2 or 3 blankets, and then ran to the house for hot water. He made some warm gruel, which Black Beauty drank. All this time John was talking to himself, and he seemed very angry. "Stupid boy," he kept saying, "no blanket, and I'll bet the water was cold, too." Black Beauty was very sick. John nursed him night and day, and the horse doctor came to see him every day. Little Joe Green was broken-hearted to think he had let Black Beauty get sick, all because he did not know the right thing to do. The master came out to the stable often to see his favorite. "My poor Beauty," he said one day, "my good horse. You saved your mistress's life, Beauty. Yes, you saved her life." Of course, Black Beauty was very glad to hear that, and slowly he began to get better. Then everyone was happier at Birtrick Hall. It was now 3 years since Black Beauty had come there to live, and he would have liked to stay forever, but sad changes were about to take place. The mistress was not well, and the doctor said she must go away to a warm country for 2 or 3 years. Everyone was sorry, for it meant the break-up of Birtrick Hall. Ginger and Black Beauty were sold to the squire's friend, the Earl of W. Merrylegs was given to the vicar, and Joe Green went along to take care of him. The children came out with their governess to say good-bye to their beloved Merrylegs. "Have you decided what to do, John?" the master asked. "Well, sir," said John, "I've made up my mind that I could get a job with some good horse trainer. It would be the right thing for me. Many young animals are frightened and spoiled by the wrong treatment, and that need not be if the right man took them in hand. I get on well with horses, and if I could help some of them to a fair start, I should feel as if I was doing some good." "Yes," said the master, "you understand horses, and they understand you. I'll do all I can to help you get such a job." Excuse me. Then came the sad last day at Birtrick Park. Black Beauty and Ginger drove the Gordons to the railroad station, and heard the mistress saying, "Goodbye, John. God bless you." The next morning John took Black Beauty and Ginger across country about 15 miles to Earlshall Park, where the Earl of W. lived. John patted the horses before he left, and Black Beauty held his face close to John, for that was all he could do to say goodbye. The Earl's house was very fine, and there were many stables, but the horses were not as happy as they had been before. They had to wear tight reins that held their heads up too high when they pulled the carriage, and they did not feel that the people around them loved their horses as much as the Gordons did. When the Earl's family went for a long visit to London, the horses were left in the care of a man named Reuben Smith. Reuben understood horses and was good to them, but he had one great fault. He sometimes got drunk. Because of this he had never been able to get a job as a head coachman, but still he was so pleasant and useful that the Earl hoped he could be trusted to take care of the stables while the regular coachman was in London with the Earl's family. One day Reuben rode Black Beauty to the White Lion Inn, where he told the hostler to feed the horse well. A nail was coming loose in one of Black Beauty's shoes. "Shall I fix that shoe?" asked the hostler. "No," said Reuben in a loud voice. "It'll be all right till we get home. I'm just going to see some of my friends, but I'll be back at 6 o'clock. Beauty thought it was very unlike Reuben not to see about the shoe, as he was usually very particular about loose nails. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Reuben came back, and he was drunk, and in a very bad manner. Almost before they were out of town he began using the whip, although Black Beauty was already going at a gallop. The moon had not yet risen, and it was very dark. The roads were stony, and Black Beauty's shoe kept getting looser and looser until it finally came off. If Reuben had been in his right senses, he would have known something was wrong, But he kept driving ahead at a gallop over sharp stones that cut into Black Beauty's poor foot that had no shoe. No horse could keep his footing when he was driven like that. Finally, Black Beauty stumbled and fell forward on his knees. Reuben was thrown off and he lay still on the ground. Black Beauty's knees and foot were hurting very much, but he stood quietly by the edge of the road, waiting for help to come. It was nearly midnight when Robert and Ned, two of the men from Earlshall Park, came up the road in the dog cart with Ginger pulling it. They were coming to see why Reuben had not reached home, and they were much surprised to find his body lying in the road. "Why, look," said Ned, seeing Black Beauty's cut knees. "The horse has been down and thrown him." "Who would have thought the black horse would do that? Nobody thought he could fall." Then Robert tried to lead Black Beauty forward, but the horse took one step and almost fell again. Robert knelt down beside him. "See here? He's hurt in the foot as well as the knees. His hoof is all cut to pieces. No wonder he fell, poor fellow." Reuben must have been out of his senses to think of riding a horse over these stones without a shoe. They put Reuben into the dog cart, and then Robert tied his handkerchief tightly around Black Beauty's sore foot and slowly led him home. Feeling sorry for the poor horse, Robert patted him and talked to him all the way. Back in the stable he bathed and cleaned the wounds and made Black Beauty as comfortable as he could. The next day the horse doctor came. "I don't think the joints are hurt," he said. "If they aren't, he'll be able to work, but of course he'll never have good-looking knees again." It took a long time for Black Beauty's wounds to heal, and then he was turned into a meadow for a month or two to rest. One day the Earl came to see him. "What I feel worst about," the Earl was saying to the coachman, "is that Squire Gordon thought his horses would have a good home with me, and now I'll have to sell this black one. It's a great pity, but I couldn't have knees like those in my stables." "No, sir," said the coachman, "but I know a man in Bath who has a livery stable. He takes good care of his horses, and he might want to buy this one." About a week after this, with only a goodbye whinny to Ginger, he was put on a train and sent to Bath. And we're going to end there. And I hope you enjoyed this part of Black Beauty. Stay tuned for the next part.